Okay, members, moving briefly back to motions and resolutions. Members, is there any objection to granting Ms. Gonzalez unanimous consent for reconsideration on file item number 2, AB 67, for purposes of sending the measure to the inactive file? Seeing and hearing none, reconsideration is granted. File item number 2, that's AB 67, is ordered to the inactive file. Members, we are going to move to business on the daily file. File item number 1 is pass and retain. Moving to Assembly, third reading. Motions to reconsider are continued. Members, moving to Assembly, third reading, file item number 3. That's ACR 74. The clerk will read.
Assembly Concurrent Resolution 74 by Assemblymember Bigelow relative to California Fairground Appreciation Month.
Members, if I could please have your attention, and please direct that attention now to Mr. Bigelow. Mr. Bigelow, you may open on the resolution.
Mr. Speaker and members, thank you. I rise today to present ACR 74, which declares the month of June as California Fairground Appreciation Month. Members, we have 76 fairgrounds scattered throughout the great state. We commonly associate these fairgrounds with summer fun, exhilarating rides, and delicious fried foods. However, these fairgrounds mean so much more to our communities than fried Twinkies and Ferris wheels. Fairgrounds provide crucial open space for emergency response situations. Our fairgrounds are a vital staging area for our firefighters and emergency responders during our wildfire seasons. They also are used as emergency evacuation centers for our communities during natural disasters. Our fairgrounds are used as a place for agricultural education programs, preparing our youth to become our next generation of farmers and ranchers. The opportunities fairgrounds provide to display agricultural products and livestock bring to the forefront the importance and reality of farming as well as ranching for all Californians. Fairgrounds are also a host for charity events, concerts, competitive exhibits, cultural events, racing, both auto racing and horse racing. According to the most recent figures, state fairgrounds generated $856 million to California's economy and employed over 25,000 full-time employees. As for the California State Fair, last year more than 750,000 people attended and over 75,000 corn dogs were sold. I'm told down in San Diego that their fair had an attendance last year of over 1.5 million people. Our fairgrounds benefit the local economies and create a ripple effect of our economic activity and tourism dollars for the state. Members, I urge all of my colleagues to attend their local fairs this season and enjoy all that their fairgrounds have to offer. Mr. Chairman, I would ask that the first roll call be open for co-authors.
Thank you, Mr. Bigelow. Seeing no additional discussion on this item, Mr. Bigelow is asking that the first roll be open for co-authors on ACR 74. The clerk will open the roll. Members, this is for co-authors. Co-authors members on ACR 74. Clerk will close the roll. There are 71 co-authors added on ACR 74. Without objection, we may take a voice vote on the resolution. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. Mr. Bigelow, I send it back to you, sir, for your guest introduction related to the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I'd like to invite all the members to come and enjoy some fair food with the Fair Board members from around the state. You just can't say no to corn dogs, kettle corn, cinnamon rolls, and by the way, they're fresh, flown in today from San Diego County Fair just this morning. This event will be hosted by the Western Fairs Association and the California State Fair from 12:30 to 1:30 in Capitol Room 317. And here on the floor today with me, I'd like to introduce Western Fairs Association President Troy Bowers from Amador County Fair. We have from the California State Fair, CEO Rick Pickering, as well as Deputy General Manager from the Del Mar Fair, Becky Bartling. Please join me in giving them a round of applause.
Okay, members, we are back on the file. File items 4 through 7 are pass and retain items. We are going to move to file item number 8. Members, if we could have your attention. File item number 8 is ACR 71. The clerk will read.
Assembly Concurrent Resolution 71 by Assemblymember Dodd and others relative to Elder and Vulnerable Adult Abuse Awareness Month.
Mr. Dodd, you may open on the resolution.
Mr. Speaker and members, each year more than 2 million vulnerable and older adults are victims of abuse, neglect, and exploitation. Elder abuse affects men and women of all ethnic backgrounds and social status. It occurs in private residences and facilities. Even in 2015, the state does not collect or maintain comprehensive data on abuse cases, reports, or investigations. This inhibits our capacity to be informed about existing trends and make informed decisions about strategic use of existing resources. ACR 71 will recognize June as Elder and Vulnerable Adult Abuse Awareness Month, bringing the much-needed attention to this tragic issue. Mr. Speaker, I respectfully ask you to open the first roll for co-authors.
Thank you, Mr. Dodd. Ms. Brown, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As Chair of Aging and Long-Term Care, I can't let this pass without saying something. As I've said many times, 1,000 people a day are turning 65. And so with that 65, unfortunately, there are spiraling rates of elder abuse. In a recent national study of Adult Protective Services, about 83 of those 1,000 people who are turning 65 each day will be abused annually. The United Nations has even decided that this is so important that they will be designating June 15 as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, which gives us an additional opportunity to reflect on the neglect, abuse, and violence experienced by older people as a worldwide matter and as a human rights violation. Elder abuse is estimated to cost Americans tens of billions of dollars annually in health care, social services, investigative and legal costs, and lost income and assets. So I thank Mr. Assemblymember Dodd, and I strongly urge an aye vote for this ACR 71.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Seeing no additional discussion on the item, Mr. Dodd is asking that the first roll be open for co-authors on ACR 71. The clerk will open the roll. Members wishing to add as co-authors. Members, this is for co-authors on ACR 71. The clerk will close the roll. There are 75 co-authors added to the resolution. Without objection, we may take a voice vote on the item. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. Moving to file item number 9, that's ACR 76. The clerk will read.
Assembly Concurrent Resolution 76 by Assemblymember Jones and others relative to the 800th anniversary of Magna Carta.
Mr. Jones, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. ACR 76 will commemorate the 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta. On June 15th, 1215, King John of England was forced by a group of rebellious barons to affix the royal seal to a charter of rights and liberties. They established the principle that the king and government generally must grant certain rights to the people and accept limitations on government power. For 8 centuries, the Magna Carta has been a powerful influence upon the constitutional and legal development around the world. It was the first constitutional text and an early milestone on the path toward freedom and democracy in the United States and other democratic countries. Our founding fathers were inspired by many of the basic rights and freedoms first laid out in the Magna Carta. One clause says, "No free man shall be taken or imprisoned or outlawed or in any way harmed, nor will we go upon or send upon him, save by the lawful judgment of his peers or by the law of the land. Another clause of the Magna Carta said, to none will we sell, to none deny or delay right or justice. These words are still just as powerful and relevant today. They embody the principle that no person and no government are above the law. The ideologies of the Magna Carta served as an inspiration for many important historical documents, including the Mayflower Compact, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution of the United States, and the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The Magna Carta served as precedent invoked by individuals as diverse as James Otis in his arguments against general warrants in the colonial Massachusetts, Nelson Mandela in his struggle against apartheid in South Africa, and Justice Anthony Kennedy in Supreme Court litigation involving detention without hearing of Guantanamo Bay detainees. Permission to use a prop, Mr. Speaker.
Without objection.
And today, members, I have been given the most recent copy of the California State Legislative Constitution, State of California Constitution, and the very first document printed by our own legislation is the Magna Carta, dated 1215. As long as people celebrate freedom under the law, the Magna Carta will remain the great charter of liberties. I encourage everyone to join me in observing this important milestone in the history of development of our modern constitutional government. And, Mr. Speaker, I'd ask that the first roll call be open for co-authors.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Cooley, you are recognized.
Colleagues, I'm pleased to rise today as we commemorate this 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta, the Great Charter. This is a vital document that relates to conversations we have here on this floor. It was preceded 129 years before by something under William the Conqueror known as the Domesday Book. This was the first time in English history that a king actually reached out and identified individual parcels of land, and the purpose was actually to further taxation. But it planted the seed of individual property and ownership, and therefore human dignity, the autonomy of the individual, and that there were limitations on the power of the king. So the Magna Carta, which we honor today, built upon that foundation with a wide array of provisions, some of which relate to feudal practices long since forgotten, but the great chapters 39 and 40 dealing with a swift trial, property rights. These were things which are carried forward into our colonies by William Penn and the state charters. And it stands for this incredible idea that there is a limit upon the power of the king that rests in the people. This is the big idea of the Magna Carta that we honor today. It is embodied, of course, I must turn to the motto of our chambers on the wall above us, duty of the legislature to pass just laws. What is the yardstick? It's founded upon our conceptions of justice and propriety embodied in our state and federal constitutions. We, the people, is an echo of the Magna Carta. So I just want to say all of this points not just to the limitation of the power of the king, but a great reminder that freedom is not in our DNA. The exercise of civic responsibility is not in our DNA. It is something that across centuries has gradually been grasped by individuals, so that this conversation we have here on the floor about the need to energize the sense of democracy, of participation, of the privileges of living in democracy is actually a long-running objective of democratic ideals. And even as we've talked about it in the last election cycle, how do we bring people greater engagement? This is a work of centuries of which we are a part and of which the Magna Carta is a very, very vital marker. So I'm honored to rise in support of this measure.
Thank you, Mr. Cooley. Mr. Alejo, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. I rise as this document is not about the penumbras or text of the Constitution, but another very important document in our world's history. I rise in support of ACR 76 by my Republican colleague from the 71st District to also recognize the 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta. As a law student studying constitutional law at a very prestigious Martin Luther King Hall, I learned to respect the Magna Carta as establishing many of the civil rights principles that we live by today, including our Fifth Amendment right that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, and property without due process of law, the right to a speedy trial, and the right to a trial by a jury. In addition, the Magna Carta has been keyed as its inspiring principles outlined in the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, which was drafted by UN Delegate Eleanor Roosevelt back in 1948. She credited the Magna Carta for much of her inspiration and declared the document to be the international Magna Carta for all humankind. These longstanding principles are common practice in the United States today, but in the 13th century, they were seen as revolutionary. In celebrating this anniversary, it's important to remember the universal truth as outlined in the UN Declaration of Human Rights, that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Members, let's work to preserve these freedoms as we deliberate in these chambers. I respectfully ask for your aye vote, and I thank my colleague from Santee for commemorating this important historic document.
Thank you, Mr. Alejo. Mr. Ridley Thomas is also seeking recognition. Mr. Ridley Thomas.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the gentleman from Santee's ACR 76 and would simply point that to the fact that the Magna Carta laid the foundation for the advancement of liberty and the abolition of slavery and human trafficking. So it was a step. It did not, in its own right, eliminate the practice of slavery or the insidious practices of human trafficking in its time. However, it set in motion the events that brought greater liberty to all people. I thank the gentleman for bringing this forward as we talk about fundamental human rights and liberty in government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Ridley Thomas. All debate and discussion having ceased, Mr. Jones, you may close if you wish. Mr. Jones is asking that the first roll be open for co-authors. Members, with that, clerk will open the roll. Members, this is for co-authors on ACR 76. Co-authors adding on ACR 76, the clerk will close the roll. There are 73 co-authors added. Without objection, we may take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. Members, we are moving to announcements and adjournments in memory. The following members were granted prior permission to speak on an adjournment in memory. Mr. Breaux, you are recognized for your adjournment in memory.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Melvin Ralph Pierce was born August 11th, 1923 in Northeast Pennsylvania. He had two older brothers and one sister. His family moved to Dana Point in 1930. His dad got a job from Sidney Woodruff, who was the original developer of Dana Point. They lived in a Spanish-style home that was one of the first 6 homes built in Dana Point. During World War II, Mel's two brothers served in the Navy, and Mel served in the Army Air Corps, was an aircraft mechanic stationed in England. Mel married Helen in 1948. They had 4 children, John, who passed away last year, Sandra, David, and Rebecca. All are married and have children. Mel has many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Before the Orange County Fire Department, Mel was also a volunteer fireman in Capo Beach for 25 years. Just last month, the Dana Point Historical Committee bestowed an honor on Mel, calling him a Dana Point patriarch. He always worked very hard, taking care of his family. He did it with joy and strong work ethics. Saturday, there was a large outpouring of family and friends at South Shores Church in Dana Point to remember Mel. I ask that we adjourn in Mel's memory today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Breaux. Mr. Dodd, you are recognized for your adjournment in memory.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I ask you today to join me in remembering and celebrating the life of Doug Arnold of Davis. Doug was a well-known local philanthropist who had his own real estate agency with Coldwell Banker and was highly regarded throughout the entire Davis community. Over his 68 years, it was believed that Doug gave over $1 million to hundreds of Davis charities. One of 3 generations of family to serve as president of the Davis Chamber of Commerce, Doug was the pillar of the business community in Davis. Doug is survived by his daughters Carrie and Cameron and his son Will, 11 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dodd. Mr. Holden, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask that the membership adjourn in memory of Mary Lois Nevins. Born on December 6, 1924 in Garden City, New York, Mary Lois spent her childhood on the East Coast before moving to Southern California. She settled in Pasadena, where she raised her family with Richard Nevins and their three sons, Richard, William, and Henry. In addition to being a devoted and loving wife and mother, she was a graduate of Vassar College, a teacher, and an extremely active volunteer for community-based causes and in local politics. She taught to at-risk children at the Episcopal Home for Children, also known as Hillsides, for 18 years. She founded the Tutor-Friendly Volunteer Program, which brings together the young residents of Hillsides and Pasadena area high schools and college students. In 1990, she was invited to join the board of Pacific Oaks College, becoming chair before retiring from Pacific Oaks board in 1997. Mary Lois also served as the president of the Mothers Club Learning Center, which has become a nationally recognized model for two generations of family learning. Mary Lois died peacefully at her home at the age of 90 on May 25th. She was preceded in death by her husband, Richard Nevins, a former member of the California State Board of Equalization. She is survived by her sons, Richard, William, and Henry, daughters-in-law, Sharon, Adlai, and Nanette, grandchildren, Sarah, Catherine, Richard, Casey, Austin, and Wynn, and by her siblings, Hathaway Hassler, Helen Farley, and Dwight Minton, her sisters-in-law, Catherine Schorschenbach, Louisa Miller, and Dorothy Scully, 39 nieces and nephews, 61 grandnieces and nephews, and 6 great-great-nieces and nephews. She was loved for her remarkable empathy, fun-loving nature, her generous heart, and her relentless positive attitude. Mary Lois will be missed by her entire family and her many friends.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. Members, please bring the names to the desk to be printed in the journal. All requests to adjourn in memory will be deemed read and printed in the journal. The session schedule is as follows. Tuesday, June 9th, check-in session and floor session upon call of the Speaker. Wednesday, June 10th, check-in session and floor session upon call of the Speaker. Thursday, June 11th, floor session at 9 a.m. All other items remaining will be passed and retained. All motions shall be continued. Seeing and hearing no further business, I am ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Holden moves. Ms. Waldron seconds that this House stands adjourned until Thursday, June 11th at 9 a.m. or upon call of the Speaker. Quorum call is lifted.